be here, really share at the association. Just really share with all of you. I think like my story personally, I started out on the missions field. So I started reaching people for Christ, reaching people overseas. We started down in Africa, then went to Central South America, really reaching people for the Lord, and just spent years helping the local church overseas reach people for Christ. And then what had happened later in life, I had a friend, he got me to, which was an absolute crazy, huge mistake. He asked me to invest in real estate, and I lost everything in 2008. So my wife and I came back off the missions field, living with family. We're at rock bottom, really just praying and seeking God. And God did a work in our hearts, man, just really, and all of us had to forgive the guy I did business with, forgive myself because I was an idiot for getting involved. And once I got past that, we really started ministering to people again and sharing our story. You know, our marriage got stronger, all of it. And we were traveling around the U.S. sharing just what God had done and really just our heart for evangelism. And I began to start seeing that churches were struggling reaching people today, digitally, creatively. And that's where we started Pro Media Fire. So real honor with a missions heart. And I realized we made a shift from being a missionary, going into a foreign country, learning the language, sharing Christ with them, to now being here where we're digital missionaries. And so we're digitally, you know, speaking and sharing and reaching, of course, Christ through digital methods, speaking the language of culture to bring them to the Lord. So that's kind of how it all came about in a nutshell. And then we've been honored. Now we've got a team of 38 people and just some real talented, you know, graphic designers, web developers, across the board, art director, you know, creative director, all of our amazing team that really are helping churches and nonprofits around the world. So with all that said, I've got an official presentation here, but I feel like just, you know, Daniel, Tony, Wayne, it's just a few of us. Why don't we take a different approach today? Let me ask you guys some questions. Let me just see how I can help and serve you. I'm curious right now, those that are on, what are your greatest challenges right now reaching people? Your greatest challenges digitally?
All right, I'll go. I think our biggest problem is just having a web presence. We are in the middle of nowhere. And so it's mostly an older congregation. But I was having this conversation with Brother Allen, I guess it was Tuesday, that we are seeing younger families come in and replace a lot of the older people. And so when the younger families do move in, we want to have some sort of a web presence to attract those younger families. And our website's stuck in 1990.
That's a problem, yes. All right. I like the way you're real and transparent already, Daniel. You say like
we're all friends in here, so we're
that's awesome. I'm interested because there are, so it sounds like you do have some young families moving out to your area, even though you are rural. So there are some new families moving to the area.
Well, there's a couple. It's mostly a lot of people are retiring and moving out here, but I don't know if that's going to be a sustainable policy or growth strategy for this area. So eventually younger families will be moving in, especially now that everyone can do stuff digitally. You'll see people who live in Dallas who can work from home, get out of the city and move to a more rural area. So I just think it'd be good to kind of have that idea, you know, in process.
You know, I'll tell you a story, and this will help Daniel, which you know, because you've already said you need that web presence, but I think this will help, is that actually it's my brother-in-law, and this was great because he's a great example, is he was leaving Oklahoma, got out of college, him and his wife, here they are, they're moving to another state, gets a job offer, and he's looking for a church. And so I asked him, I said, so tell me, I'm always looking, what's your experience? How did you go about it? Well, we know it started like all of us. There's no yellow pages anymore. You get online. So he's looking at churches online. And he came out of a small church where he was in Oklahoma. So keep this in mind. It's not about the size of the church. He came from a very small church, and he was actually wanted another small church. This is what they were looking for, him and his wife. But he's looking online, and I said, I'm curious, what churches did you go visit? And he said, we visited the ones, he said, there were so many websites. I was on their websites, but I couldn't get past the design of the website. He said, I couldn't get past that. It was just old. It didn't. And he said, I was telling myself in the back of my head, I know these are good people, because he wanted another small church. He wanted that. And he says, I know it. But he said he couldn't get past the design. And so in the end, I said, well, where'd you go visit? He said the ones that the designs were more current, and it felt like it was speaking to me. So I thought that was fascinating, right? He went with which designs were all making online decisions in split seconds, like who calling me out. And that's what he did. So his wife and him ended up going to a little bit of a larger church, though they wanted a smaller church, because the online presence called them out and got them to visit. Now, I think that's fascinating. So online is very important, the web. And if you remember the old days, like, what seems like pre-COVID, now that the malls are back open again, but if we go to the malls, what's left of the malls, when you walk into the malls, you know how the interesting thing is that when we walk into the malls, they call us out. Like each store calls you out. You walk by Abercrombie and Fitch, and it's like loud music. Da, 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 all the youthful music, and you're like, whoa. So you don't walk in there. You do not see anybody. You don't see a 75-year-old walking into Abercrombie and Fitch to go buy their clothes, because they're calling out a certain crowd. Now, you'll see like a Gap, which will be all ages, or you would see different retailers. So as a church, we have to be mindful that people are making split-second decisions for us online. And are we speaking their language so that they'll come in and feel welcome? So anyway, just a little story here. I thank you, Daniel, for you kind of just sharing right off the bat your struggle with the web presence and with that side, because it is so vital. The other thing it's vital for is not just new people moving the area, but a lot of times in rural area, what happens is I grew up in church, I've walked away from church, and now I'm coming back to church. And so when you look at those churches, oftentimes those young families make a decision first by the web presence as well, which is interesting, and where they're going to go back to, unless they have relationships and family nearby and so on, that sometime will pull them back into the same congregation. So that's good. How about any other, or how about Tony, your major challenges, struggles right now, reaching people digitally?
I think it's just updating, keeping it updated. It's in the back door. You forget about it. And none of us around here is really terribly skilled at it. Ours looks decent and needs updating, like everybody else's. But I think that's the biggest challenge for us, is it gets forgotten.
Now, how have you all done, during COVID, coming out of COVID, now going back to live services? Do you still have some people, or any of you have people watching online, or has everyone come back? Where are things currently there?
Our numbers are higher than they were pre-COVID, but we do have a few isolated senior adults that are still kind of staying in.
Okay, they're still
watching. I couldn't tell you if they're doing that or not. They're just not coming.
Okay, all right. That's keeping it real too. Once again, Tony. Like, all right, hey, there we go. That's excellent. Well, I think that.
I was just going to ask, a couple of the pastors, bivocational pastors I talked to, were just about how do I manage a site when I don't have any time to manage a site, that type of thing. And then another pastor I talked to, hopefully be joining us here pretty soon, but he's like, my kids have been telling me we need a webpage for our church for years. I don't know anything about it. And I know we've got several pastors who probably were almost too intimidated to get on this call for that very reason. They don't know where to start, and they're starting from almost negative space. They'll watch this play, and because they didn't want to, admit that they don't know anything about websites at all.
No, that's understandable. I know it can be intimidating. I think that one thing that would help with all of us is, I think that one key area is there's a number of ways. I mean, there's, of course, companies like ours, we maintain sites, we handle for churches those we serve, but also too, I say for churches that are smaller, bivocational, others that if you can't afford, things like that finding a young person, finding someone that could maintain and keep it up at the church, with a heart, or finding a volunteer. That would be one of the first key things, but it has to come, the heart of it has to start with us as a leader, or from church staff, really in reaching out and sharing that vision, and then giving someone an opportunity to own the digital side and for them to keep it up. So I think that that's a big part of it there. Now, there's challenges with volunteers because sometimes they come, they keep it up, and then they're gone in 4 months. We all know, volunteers, that they lose heart for it. They start, so those are some real challenges. I will say that if you put in the time, like for us, I mean, even with us, it's like we have, real, simple, product there with web and, updating things, but it takes time to learn. I'll be honest with you. You have to, no matter what you use, get out there. Either you have to take a little time to learn it, or you're going to have to bring in a young person or someone to volunteer and learn it. That's kind of just how it works. I think we all know. So it's a difficulty of, but I will say this. I think that I've always found in leadership myself, I would encourage all of us as pastors, leader, even the pastors listening, is that the vision always starts with us. If you start sharing the vision for digital, people will rise up to volunteer. And people will rise up to it. And so even though we don't understand it, even if we don't understand it, as long as we see the why, and they need to hear that from the reason. And the why is to reach more people for Jesus, to make an impact. I mean, let's be honest, that's the big why right now. Social media is that, social media, there's a lot going on in social media. In many ways, some people feel like, hey, let's just pull off of social media. But social media is where the people are. So if we see the why, it's a great place to reach people for Christ, and then bring them into the conversation and bring them into our church. But I would encourage all of us that if you don't know, don't let anyone on the call or anyone listening later, because you don't know, don't let that stop you from getting a vision for digital. Because even though it's not your generation, you can get a vision for it. A great example of that is my father. My father is 72, and he was going on the missions field with us, and we would do large, evangelistic events, and we would see, churches afterwards. We'd bring the city together for a festival, and we'd see thousands of people come to Christ, and we'd watch these little churches, grow, and they would just, be reaching people for Christ, and they would grow. And my dad just loved to come, and we'd weep. The two of us just weep seeing people come to Christ and these nations transformed. But for a while, he didn't understand digital. He was like, Clint, what are you doing? When are we going overseas? Hey, right, let's go back to Africa. Let's do it. He's still trying to get me over to it. It's like, let's go. And I love the nations. I love going. But he's still thinking in that natural. I said, Dad, you know how much work it was for us to get 10,000, 20,000 people together in that nation? I said, there's churches that we help them do that in a day. And he's like, wow, really? I said, yeah, we literally helped them reach all those people online in a day. You know that we spent weeks and months putting these events together, and it was awesome to see everything that happened. But now we'll help a church do it in a day. And so over time, I began to share the why with him and get it. And then he began to visit some churches with us where the pastor would come up and be like, I'm hooked, man. I'm hooked on this YouTube and on this Instagram, because we got people coming in every Sunday and they're telling us they saw us online. They're telling us that they saw us over here. And like, I can't go back. It's like we're reaching more people for Christ than we ever have. And they're just super pumped. So my dad slowly started seeing it. And still to this day, my dad doesn't understand how to get on and get a website set up. He doesn't understand how to do social media. He doesn't understand any of that. But one thing he does have is he's cheering me on now. And he says, Clint, I get it. I see the why. You're reaching people for Christ. Churches are growing. And he said he's cheering. So he got the why. So what I would encourage you, and so he's able to cheer us on, others up, the younger generation, is that even though it's not your generation, you're not a digital generation, just get the why. That's all you need. Get the why it works. And it's hybrid today too. This the other thing I'll encourage all of us is that it's hybrid. Like today, in today's world, we'll order something on Amazon and then we'll go walk into Walmart in the same day. So as a church, why don't we think like that? That we have to think and realize that we'll reach somebody online, and that may be their first experience with us, and maybe a number of months we touch them online, and then finally they walk into an actual service and we get to shake their hand. Another thing to be mindful of with online today is that one major shift we begin to see is that we're reaching people online, is that the moment they show up at your church, this is why your online presence and your website's very important, because the moment they show up in your service, in the old days, 20 years ago, They just saw your sign out front. They saw your name in a yellow, in the yellow pages. They showed up and they didn't know if they liked you. They're like, yeah, let's go check out that church. And they're sitting back in the pews and like, okay, let's see. We're like, hey, we kind of like it. Okay, yeah, I like the worship here. They're like, oh man, pastor's bringing a good word. Okay, hey, and they're decide in there after they showed up, they've decided that. That's not how it works today. Today, when they show up in your church, they've already decided they like you. Whoa, that's a mindset shift. We have to realize that now in today's world. They've already decided they like, unless they were invited by a friend, which does happen, word of mouth, a friend brings them out. But the majority of visitors that come, they just don't walk into your church anymore. They check you out online. So they're watching a little bit of a message. They're reading the website, checking out. So the moment they show up, the mentality is different. They're sitting in the pew and now they're saying, we like these people. Do we want to stay here and make this home? Whoa, that's a shift. Because if we're still thinking the old way that we need to be all about the internal experience the moment they show up, now we have to be conscious that that experience starts online and we carry it out when they show up. It's like if you've ever met somebody, like right now, we're all talking digitally right now, and you've ever met someone for the first time, you did Zoom meetings for a while, and then you finally showed up with them, shook their hand, gave them a hug. It was like you knew each other. But it was all digital. You never actually shook hands. And then you're like, finally you showed up and you're like, hey, you meet the person, same thing digitally. They've already decided that they like you digitally. And now they've shown up physically. So that's a major shift today. It's why web is so important. And until you fix these web issues and until you fix your design and get things right, you're not going to be able to have that first conversation. They're going to take and go with the church that they like online that's calling them out, and then show up to try them out and find out, is this where we want to make home? So be mindful, man. There's some good stuff here we're bringing out today. Wayne, how about you? We didn't get a chance here. You've been a little bit in and out. You got a clear picture now, though. I don't know where you're at now, but your Wi-Fi or your signal's good now. So how about you, Wayne? What's your main struggles? What you got going on?
Yeah.
Oh, you froze on us?
Well, right now I'm not in a church. I may be soon, but
Okay.
I work for the Southern Baptist of Texas Convention, so I can share this stuff with some of my churches.
Awesome. Oh, awesome. Well, pleasure to have you on, Wayne. That's awesome. So glad. Excellent.
Thanks.
Are you looking for a church down the line here, Wayne? Oh, excellent. Well, hey, how about
a small
coming
church?
back?
Yes.
Oh.
Bivocational.
Oh, wonderful. That's awesome, Wayne. I want to say I love it. Absolutely love it. Is that my father-in-law? Let me tell you this. This is the awesome thing. Get additional. We were helping my father-in-law. He is pastoring in a small town, Oklahoma, my wife and I, and just gave his life to a rural area. Gave his life to this rural area, loving it. And I watched the call of God on that. And it's so beautiful is that one of the things that when you pastor in a rural area, you pastor the community. And that's what's so powerful. He would do funerals for people that didn't go to the church and others. And it's like I would go around town with him and sit at the restaurant. Everybody, pastor, hey, and it's like he was pastoring the community and pouring in. And it was so beautiful because as I watched that, I just want to honor all of you. Just, if you are anyone listening, you're bivocational or you're in a rural area, I saw his life, and it was just so powerful. And one of the things that really struck me is he actually passed away suddenly at 67 last year. Was heartbroken. Yeah, went down, my wife and I. But let me tell you, I don't tell it the sad thing is he's in heaven today. Thank God, praise God. But this is what shocked me. Him giving 30 plus years of his life in this rural town is that his funeral was packed. People weeping had come from all over Oklahoma. And what shocked me is that everybody came up to me and they're hitting me and they're talking to me. And they knew that I, of course, had met one of his daughters. And everyone was saying, well, he impacted my life this one moment he was here. Everyone had a moment. And people come from all over because he was pastoring the community. And I was looking and thinking, wow, we're talking about 500 people, showing up, the place packed. A man who gave his life for a rural community, his splash and impact. And there was so many others who couldn't make it, who had moved out of the state, others all around the world, some military, all kinds of impact that he had made in his life. And he was just giving his life for Christ in a rural community. So I want to say thank you, all of you. Thank you. Every one of you is serving the Lord wherever you are, even as a rural community, big city, all in the rural communities. Thank you for serving the Lord and touching lives. Because I want to tell you, when it's said and done, your life is over. The impact is huge. I saw it this last year. So I just want to say thank you. I honor all of you. So that's awesome. So I love it. I'll open up. Maybe, Alan, you got some additional things you'd love for me to speak into? Or guys, if you have any questions, I mean, feel free. We're just kind of taking a little more laid back today, our first time. Maybe we'll come on again and just serve you well. Anything I can do to help Alan and all of you would love to. Just honored to help and serve.
Tell us a little bit. I know a lot of guys, I look at a lot of websites of churches and whatnot, and you see a lot of different front pages.
Yep.
You helped us with our front page in my last church, and it was truly a changer for us. What are some of the things that if you don't have that it's right there, right in front of you, that people don't need to go searching for when they come to your website? It's got to be clear where that's at.
Yes, that's so good, Alan. You bring that up. A lot of clear given things has come on. Thinking about it from a first-time visitor's experience. I like how you asked that, because one shift in mindset when we came in, even with you, Alan, and a lot of anyone that we work with, is that we oftentimes think of our congregation first, which is great. We're shepherds, we're pastors. We should be thinking about our congregation. But your website major purpose is to reach people that don't know you. So I think that's the big shift. You need to let your people know, once again, that you need to have the information that's congregation based, but it should be buried on the website. Your first page, just as you were asking there, Alan, that first page when you come on, the sole purpose is someone who doesn't know you. They're going to be asking questions. They just showed up. So we want to call them out. We want to have the information to call out, letting them know that they're welcome, where they can go and automatically find out, service times. There's a call to action if you want, where you want to take them. And it depends on exactly the demographic that you're reaching, but you want to have these things available. Who you are, once again, a welcome. You want to have service times available. You want to have links that they can go and find this information. And very easy, they can see how to get to where you're at. All that location simple. They can see, making them comfortable with just first time showing up. There's going to be links. Hey, it's your first time, or you're interested in coming for, an experience in visiting. If you want to visit, you could click through to the next page where it would have some simple information. Like, for instance, hey, if you're casual dressed, I might want to know that. Maybe I haven't been to church in 25 years, and I'm thinking I need to throw on a tie, and I've got to come, in there and that. And if you're casual, then you want to set them at ease, that they know, hey, you can come casual, come as you are, and we're going to love you as you are. You want to let them know. In my case, I've got kids, so I got 11, 13-year-old, and I got a 2-year-old and a 6-month-old. So my wife and I got a big group there, and we want to know about the kids. So I'm thinking, I'm a parent right now, so I'm thinking about the kids. Where are my kids going to be? What's the kids, about? So you want to have that type of information. Hey, this is how you check your kids in. It's going to be real easy when you show up. Come over here. We'll get your kids taken care of. Whatever that process is, let them know about some of these things they're asking about. One of the things that they'll be interested in that is very fascinating when we were looking too at data as well, when you first come on, that the about page, when you come on, they want to know who the pastor is, they want to know who the team is, and they want to hear about you. And so that's something that's very important, because we know that a big area there for churches, one of the main reasons we choose a church, which is fascinating actually, is the preaching. If you look at the stats, and so they want to know that the preaching, that's relevant. And then it goes into, is the church welcoming? If you have kids would be important, other areas. So information, you want to think about it from the person for the first time. Now, I want to break it up because it depends where you're at, who you're reaching. If you're in a rural community and most of the people you're reaching are prodigals, so they've grown up in church, you're in the Bible Belt, you're in Texas, then I would take a different approach than if I was maybe in the city and I knew that I was targeting a number of people that were lost and really have no knowledge of church. I would take a very different approach on that first page and make it more evangelistic. If it's more of a coming back home, then I would take that approach. And digitally, you want to walk them through where you're starting a conversation with them online. I just showed up. I was searching, Googling for a church in the area. I showed up on your page. Start the conversation with me. Bring me into that conversation. Tell me about the church. Tell me about who you are. Tell me about who you're reaching. Tell me about the makeup. Let me see some faces. Let me see some people. Let me hear your heart. Now, Be mindful that if you want to be intentional, like I know you had mentioned, Daniel, that some having an older congregation. So be intentional. If the majority of your congregation, let's say, is over 60, oftentimes we'll have a client come, and this will be a situation where church will come to us and they'll say, hey, we want to reach the young generation, and the majority of their congregation is over 60. And they'll be like, all right, we want to reach 25-year-olds. And we'll be like, whoa, okay. Hey, that's awesome. You want to reach 25-year-olds, but we think that right now that's a wide gap to go from 60s to 25. So why don't we do this? Why don't we go after the 40 to 60s crowd? And let's go after them first. And then as you begin to build that segment of the church, we're also going to get the younger, because you're going to get young families as well. And so then begin to work. The point is, make your main core target a little bit lower and then a little bit lower, and build out. And naturally, you're going to get an entire multi-generational church. But I want to be careful, because what's going to happen is if you make too wide of a shift, you have an older congregation and you make your website super young, super hip, and it's like, whoa, man, you're going after that 25-year-old, and the 60-year-old gets on there and it's like, whoa, what in the world? What is this? Your brand's not congruent. The church is not congruent. So be mindful of where you're at and start making steps to reach. Now, of course, you have your youth ministry. That's different. That's a different thing we can speak into. But I'm saying making steps as far as who you want to reach, and take a main target. So on your homepage, when you arrive, if I was looking at reaching younger families and looking at going a little bit lower, in your case, Daniel, what I would do is I would say, okay, let's now focus where we can highlight in there some of our younger families, some of the people in that core demographic that I see people of that age group in the actual website when I come on. Because what happens is we do all marketing. We want to see us. We want to see us in there. We want to know that there's people like us. And so if I saw that it was all the older congregation, then I may not feel like this is a place for young families. Now, hear this out. You can be intentional and shift to focus on young families. And young families will love you. We've seen this happen with churches where you make a shift online, you call out young families, and the people are so welcoming that though the congregation's older, they are so welcoming that the younger families love it. And they start going to that church just because they're so welcoming. The love is so strong that then you have your first younger family start coming in, and then you can start building from there, and you start adding more, just getting your first and your next and your next. And then it starts going from there. You have more younger families. The key is, once again, you want to bring in the why, though. Those churches where we've seen that, they've brought in the why to the older congregation to say, listen, we're going to start becoming intentional, to start reaching younger families, younger people. And we need to really go out of our way to create a culture where we're welcoming, we are loving on them, and that we're not leaving them isolated. Because what you don't want is a younger family comes in, they feel like, I don't fit. If a younger family comes in and you immediately, treat them like they do fit, you're welcoming, you are loving. So they got that experience on the homepage that you're welcoming young families. Then they showed up and they got that on your website in the conversation. Then they show up and you treat them, they're important. Even if they're the only young family there, they are so loved. They're just feeling that. They're like, man, we love it. Because one of the fascinating things about right now today is younger people aren't as concerned about age. So this is what's fascinating. What they are concerned about is authenticity and your heart. So if your people,
hey Clint, I've got a bug out. I've got a meeting I've got to go to. I do some chaplaincy work on Thursday afternoon, so I appreciate it. We'll stay in
thanks,
touch.
Tony. So nice to meet you, man. Have a good one. Thanks for your time.
You too.
All right, God bless, brother. All right, well, hey, I don't want to take up all our time, get caught on here. Go ahead, Alan. You have any other questions or things?
I've got a question if I can.
Oh yeah, go ahead, Daniel.
All right, so right now our website is through GoDaddy.
Okay.
So I want to just completely scratch it and just start again. So if we're scratching it, starting again from the top, where would we start? How would we start?
Hey, that's a great question. I would say the first thing, Daniel, probably reach out is if you're interested, we could set you up on our new product, which is Creativo. And that actually is a web builder. So you could choose actually the church template you wanted and then build it out. And that would be all taken care of for you. And then you have your media and everything in there. You could definitely go that route. We also do have Creativo where it has pre-made, ready-made social media as well. So if you wanted, you could get social media to help with the church as well as with the web. If you're interested in that, you can actually, to get on there, reach out to our team. I'll just put it, let me put it in the chat here. I'll put it, it's team@promediafire.com. And so that, if you want, you can just reach out to them and say, hey, you know, it's on with Clint, interested, just hearing about your new product, about Creativo. It's specifically really to help smaller churches and nonprofits, and just having amazing website. We built it out. Our team has to help it already, like what Alan was asking. It's already going to have what you need on the homepage. You are going to have to, you know, switch it out with, you know, your pictures, your information, your video that you have. Now, I will say, if you want, you can pay a little extra and we can do the work, the heavy lifting if you want, but you can also do it yourself, and it's set up real well there. So go either way. Depends on your budget as far as with the church. Yeah,
that's awesome. So tell us, I mean, that's kind of new. What is different between what you guys are doing for smaller churches and, say, other template companies out there that have church templates?
That's a great question. One of the things that we're doing that's different, there's a number of options, is that we have a team that is, because we have a higher end company, our Pro Webfire, Pro MediaFire, we're also working with clients doing custom sites. And so we see what's on trend right now. And so the way we built it is we're only releasing so many really themes at a time in Creativo. And so it's going to be under the themes that are working today. And so that's the one advantage. You could go into one company and they may have 50 themes, but you may still end up picking something from, you know, that was 5 years ago, basically, in style, without realizing it. Because for you, it was a huge jump. You went from 1990 to 2015, but you didn't realize, wow, we didn't jump all the way up to 2021. So I think that's the big difference is, Al, is the current updated websites. That's the big one, and us keeping them fresh. And that's the advantage of us having a team that's doing custom sites as well. And so that's kind of how we plan, keeping it a more limited theme base and us keeping those updated. And so that way it's more current. That's the big one.
That's huge. That's huge. Yeah. Because people pay attention to websites that do look old. Daniel, you mentioned yours looks old, and I think that's something that people really do pay attention to, is what that looks like. It's just like having orange carpet in your sanctuary.
Exactly. You're exactly right. And also too, it does speak to the younger generation. Let's take a younger family. That example I started out with, my brother-in-law, is that to a younger family, it means you don't care about his generation. Like you said, almost like the carpet. It's like you don't care enough to speak my language. The other thing we didn't cover that's not fair, it's not fair, but this is the world we live in today. That right now, this device, my phone, my iPhone right here, has changed everything. So whether I'm in a rural area or I'm in the city, the expectation for media is the same. It used to be 20 years ago, we didn't put the same expectation on the church in a rural area that we did in the city. But it's not fair. In today's world, the media, we're expecting the same quality because the same people are watching the same, they're on the same Facebook, on the same YouTube. What happened is all of right now, currently, all of us, we've raised the bar. And so it's flat. The world is flat now. So on a media side and a web design side, we have to be aware of that. If we don't keep up with the trends and keep our website updated, then we will have this issue. This is something where you won't be able to have the conversation with younger families, younger generation, just because you're not current with the trend.
If I can ask another question?
Yeah, go ahead, Daniel.
All right. I've got a church council meeting Sunday.
Yes.
All right, so I go up to my church council. I say I want to completely redo my church's website. We want to completely change the way that people view us online. The very first question they're going to ask is, what's the budget? How much is this going to run us? So I know this might be unfair to ask off the top of, at the top of your head, but say our budget for us.
Say your budget.
Yeah.
You're asking me a great question. Our new project coming out. I want to say that the budget for the website.
Yeah.
If you're, go ahead.
Give him a clarification about how many people are in your church presently. He has.
Yes.
Okay. We run about, I would say, I think Sunday we had about 35.
Okay.
And then, but we have about 10 to 15 that watch online because of COVID. We've had a really big COVID outbreak in our area. Thankfully, not in the church, but in our area. And so, our online, we show live on Facebook, and we actually probably have about 15 people who will watch from the beginning to the end.
Oh, okay. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so roughly about 50. Okay, well, we're not talking about a custom site, so you could come in right now. We do have a launch special that we're putting out. I don't want to say that it's roughly $79 a month, what we're talking about. That's kind of what, if you just want it on a monthly, and I think it's $250 if you want a little help, $250 or $450 if you want help getting it set up when you first set it up. So if you wanted, hey, can you help us do some migration from our current site, help us get it set up, initially and looking nice there, then that's an additional $450. But otherwise, you could come on at that $79 a month, and it's like you have the amazing template and then the media, all that's built out. Now, if you want full, and it depends, you can get discounts on there either with our launch special or if you pay annually. So I don't know if your church likes to pay annually, if they just have it budgeted on the side, there's additional discounts for annually, I think. But with annual, if you want the web app where you have actual media to post to your social media as well, then it's like $112 a month. That gets you social media, and it gets you, it's like all of it, basically. You have all the social media to post, and you can post it right from your app. You can schedule it to Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all of it right there. It's in there. So whoever's managing it can log in. So roughly about $100 a month, you could get your web and your social media covered. And that's what we were looking for, to help a smaller church, a smaller nonprofit, just to be able to budget, and effectively we could provide the best media content possible for them to easily manage and easily reach more people with a product. So that's what we're launching, and we're just rolling it out. Right now, we're still doing waiting lists. We thought we'd actually have it out here right now, but we want the product perfect. It'll be out here in the next week to 2 weeks. So yeah, so you're right on the cusp of it. So, but that gives you the numbers, give you a little idea, Daniel. And I had to ask an interesting question, maybe the right question. If you had your website taken care of and your social media help with all of that, that you could bring content ready-made daily. Our team, our graphic designers are making it, they're dropping it in there. So you can take this content right into your social. It'll help you manage. You could schedule posts, do all of this. Does that budget sound like something that would work for you for a church of your size?
It's reasonable.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think that would probably be the first question I would ask, because we're looking to serve at the highest level how we can. And so this is something that for us to put this together, I will let you know that we've been developing a year to do this. And the development, we put a ton of investment in it just because we love the church, man. I wouldn't have got into this, there's been a lot of challenges doing it into development, but it's so worth it. It's going to be so amazing and help someone like yourself, where you can reach out and reach more people, and also continually reach them on social. Because this is the other part we haven't spoken to. Your web is very important, but also your social media is important, because they're going to find you on social and then visit your website and then visit your church. So keep that in mind. That's a digital pathway. That's why we built it out. We built out the website, but we also built out a solution for social media, because social media is your evangelism. That's your outreach tool to get out there. But you don't have to take all of it. You can do it, much less if you wanted. Yeah, so it's a good question. Anything else?
Do you have more questions you would like to ask?
I am curious. I think probably my one other question that I would love. Oh, and by the way, Daniel, the great thing is you can come in, not the website, but the media outside. You could do a free trial for like 7 days. Come in and just try it out. So when we release it, I'll make sure we get that to Alan. We get it to you guys. If you want to just try it out, there's no cost. I think that my other question I would have would be, what other challenges, either digitally with web presence, social media, do you have, Daniel, that you could speak into that we could help serve the church even better?
I think one of the big things, and this is something that at the very beginning of the pandemic, what we did is we said, all right, we've got to fix our recording problems.
Okay.
Well, one of the things that we realized is you're only as good as your internet connection.
Mm-hmm.
And where we are, it's really hard to get decent internet connection. And so, so for us, we've been really hesitant to really dive super deep into it because of how poor our internet connection is. And no matter how much we pay, no matter what we can do, it's hard to get decent internet out here.
Yeah, that's a challenge we've seen in other rural areas. That's difficult if there's not good internet out there, especially for live streaming.
Mm-hmm.
Live streaming is difficult with that. Did you explore at all, look into any kind of satellite solutions or anything there? Was there anything that
So the way that it works is there's two companies that come into Merkson and provide internet.
Okay.
And one of them is just brand new. And so they actually require building a tower. And so that's just not something that we could do financially.
Wow, so that's pricey. So you got to build it out yourself, the tower.
Yeah. Pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's John. Have you looked into any satellite providers at all?
No, sir.
I would look at it, especially too. I know that Elon Musk and some of the new providers. Well, I have not used it myself personally, but I know some of them use some satellite and so on. Just look and see. I don't know what's passing over Texas, what's available, but there could be now because they're rolling out some different solutions where now we'll be able to get internet through satellites and a lot of this new technology, and it's going to bring the price down and still have some good bandwidth. So I would just explore, do a little Googling, look and see if you could find a satellite or another solution there. If not, I think that I would look at, if you're having trouble with the live stream, most of your people are coming in person, though. You do have 10 to 15 people that are watching online. So are they watching that live or are they watching the recording afterwards?
I would say there's 5 that watch it live. And then we actually have a family who, during the pandemic, they had to start working on Sundays. And so what they do is when they get off work on Sunday, they gather at the house, they turn it on, and they show it. So it kind of makes church convenient for them.
That's awesome.
So.
Oh, that's good. So how is it working now with being on live now? Where are you putting it? Facebook? Where are you taking it? YouTube?
Just Facebook Live.
Okay. Is it enough, the resolution, where now you're able to not have any issues though? And
yeah, it's decent. Now what we did is we found a room in the church that we don't use, and we actually put in what I would say is a state-of-art recording studio.
wow, okay, awesome.
But the problem again is once you do that, you're only as good as your internet connection.
Yeah, no, I know that is a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
That is a challenge. Where do any of you have good internet where you live, but maybe not at the church? Does anybody have high-speed internet?
So it's there, but the company's terrible. So yeah, it's there's like these Facebook for our community.
Okay.
They're always posting, hey, is the internet down? Is the internet down? Stuff like that.
Okay. Well, the reason I say that is to say maybe another option that you could look at is if it'd be a little bit of work, or maybe changing because the people that are watching online, they don't show up physically, correct? They don't show up at the service?
I mean, some we're hoping eventually they will.
Okay, but some of them don't now. I was saying one option you could take to work around it, because I'm always looking, if there's a solution, something you could do. What if you recorded your service this Sunday with your good equipment? You record it, you get it in the can, and then we take that recording and we actually have it set to play the following week and for it to go live. And so then you could take it where it's pre-recorded. You'd always be a week behind, but you'd have great quality and you'd never have to worry about your internet dropping. And it would look really nice. It'd look really hot. They're still going to be up with your series. They'll just always be a week behind. And then I would set it to roll the following week, and that would solve it where you'll have really crisp great service. It'll look hot. They can be involved, and then just have somebody managing the chat, whoever on the team or whoever's kind of looking, if you do have someone volunteering to manage the chat when you're live during the service. That way, whoever gets on, one of the team, hey, Joe, good to see you, whatever, you want to reach out and let them know that you're on there. If you do have a volunteer, if not, that's fine. You can let them chat with each other, but that's how I would do it, pre-recorded, and then it'll really look crisp. It'll look great.
Daniel, I will tell you, one of the things that many of the larger churches have done, they've actually gone away from live streaming. A lot of larger churches have realized that the camera, the video interaction is quite different versus group interaction. And so many of our larger churches have already decided there's more value in putting a pastor in a small studio room or something and him doing the message intimately, like we're talking like this, versus trying to live stream the whole service. And so a lot of them have gone to a pre-recorded format of the message that he's delivering that very same Sunday, but in a more personal way. And so it's really the kind of by chance to preach through the message before preaching the message. So I've seen that as kind of a hugely growing trend among larger churches.
Yeah, and that's a shift too that we see being more and more eventually, where the digital experience will shift from the physical experience, and that is helping. I know it's tough to do that from a small church perspective. You're right, Alan, but it is great if you could do it. I like how you said it. That's really good. Alan said it there, Daniel, is if you do it, or anyone watching, do it. It's almost like a practice run. Your first service of, if you did it on a Saturday night or early on Sunday morning. The other thing you could do for an online audience, which would be very effective, is if you shortened it. So maybe your message is 40 minutes or 30 minutes to the congregation, but you shorten it where you hit the major points and you made it a lighter message of 15, 20 minutes maybe for your online audience, and you kept it a little short. That's another something that you could do if you wanted. So you're just pouring into, or you could preach your full message. It depends, because if it's your faithful watching, it depends whether you want to look at it from an outreach perspective or you want to look at it for congregation. I would preach the full message if it was, online congregation. If you want to do it more evangelistically, I would try and shorten it up a little bit, tighten it up. So, and you could play with both. I would say if I was that pastor and I was testing, I would play around with my digital service, like Alan said, and look at that as, hey, I'm not going to get real rigid how this service is. I could, open it up. Maybe you do have one of the team, or it could be a pre-recorded song and they do a little worship, one worship song. And then you have, or it's just you and it's real casual, you talking back and forth, sharing the message. But see what your people like. You'll watch the views, you'll watch the engagement. If people are like, wow, I'm really finding that, 25 minutes and starting out with a worship song, or just me being on there real personal for 25 minutes is really working online and I'm growing, then just stay with what's working. That's what we do digitally. We test it. Then we're like, wow, this is working, then lean in. When you see something's working, do more of it. That's been good today. I appreciate, Alan, the invite and everybody watching, and just, man, honored to speak in all of you.
And to reach out to you, it was team@ProMediaFire. Is that correct?
Yep. Team@ProMediaFire.com or team@ProWebFire.com. Either one, you can reach us, and that'll get to us. And feel free to let us know if you are interested in Creativo. Reach out to us, or if you just want to say hi and touch base with us. Definitely our team, we're here to help in any way. It's an honor, Alan, to help all the pastors. And one thing I would leave everyone, one note to say, wherever you're at today, please make some steps, whatever you can, to doing more digitally. You won't regret it. It does reach people for Christ. So remember, get back to the why. Just like my father, if you're in a place you might not get it, understand it, take some time to get the why. It's evangelistic. It's reaching people. You'll reach more people in your area, rural, city, wherever you are. It's really where the conversation starts in today's world. So,
well, Glenn, I want to thank you for taking time out of your day to talk to us.